Hello and welcome to the new tutorial. As you know, I previously recorded a 4-hour tutorial on how to create backrooms in Blender. A lot of people watched the tutorial and some of them asked if I could make a tutorial on pool rooms. I did some searching on YouTube and there aren't as many pool rooms videos as there are backrooms videos, but they are watched a lot and I haven't found any tutorials on how to create pool rooms. So this one, if it's not the first, will definitely be the most detailed. In this tutorial we will create the animation you are watching step by step. The tutorial will be adapted for beginners, but we will also go in depth to get as many details as possible. I will show you how to model pool rooms maze of different shapes non-destructively so that we can easily change the construction later. We will create and animate realistic water and other materials, and I will show you how to get caustics without slowing down render time. We will create daylight lighting for open spaces with windows and lighting for closed spaces. I will show you how to create realistic camera movements and how to add a lot of details and imperfections. In post-processing we will get an authentic VHS look with the new details I learned for this tutorial. If you are completely new to Blender, I am going to share with you a 10-minute video I made for a past tutorial where you can learn the basic of Blender. If you have experience with Blender, you can skip this part. You can download Blender for free at blender.org. First, I will introduce you to Blender a bit, after that we will start with this scene. This part is intended for Blender beginners. If you have experience, you can skip this part. Since Blender is a large and complex program, I will try to show you only the basic in about 10 minutes before we start working on the scene. When you open Blender for the first time, we see a lot of options. The good news is that you don't need to know most of them to create a scene. We will spend most of our time on the Layout tab, and we will also use shading for creating materials, UV editor for projecting materials on 3D objects, and finally a bit of compositing tab. All these tabs above are actually made up of these tools here. For example, layout consists of 3D viewport and timeline because we will use them a lot, so they are here by default when we open Blender. We can create a workspace according to our wishes or needs. For example, if we separate this window, we can add UV editor or shader editor or another 3D viewport here. In the 3D viewport we have three objects by default: camera, object and point lamp as light source. To create a render we must have at least one camera in the scene. To switch to camera view we can go to View, Cameras, Active Camera. But all these options have shortcuts keys. Searching for this option for this menu is waste of time, so if you use Blender you have to learn some shortcuts. We will cover the most common shortcuts in this tutorial, and with time later you can learn shortcuts for advanced options as well. For example, to switch to camera view, the shortcut is numpad 0. When we have a selected camera, in the Properties tab we can find options for this camera. For example, focal length, which is actually zoom, depth of field and others. Each object in the scene can be deleted by delete key or X, and a new one can be created with Shift A or by going to Add menu. We will mostly use the options under Mesh. There we have basic geometry shapes from which we can model anything we want in the edit mode. Once we have the camera and object, we can make the first render. Shortcut for render is F12, or you can go to render image. We now see our object because we have a light source, which is this point lamp. If we remove the point lamp and press F12, we still see something, and the reason is because in the World Properties tab we have a dark grey color but not completely black, which means that our world or environment emits some light. If we switch to black, we won't see anything. Lighting in Blender can be from three different types of source. The first is world or environment. There, in addition to color, we can also use an external file called HDRI. We can find many of them on internet for free, and we can also use procedural sky texture which comes with Blender. We create the second group of light with Shift A. There we have point, sun, spot and area. Each of these sources emit light differently. We can also turn any object into a light source if we create an emission material for this object in Shading tab. In Blender we have two render engines. The first is Eevee and the second is Cycles. Eevee is less realistic but is much faster than Cycles. Eevee can be very realistic, similar to Cycles, but you need to know how to set some settings manually, while Cycles is realistic by default because it's a physical based path tracer render engine. Speed depends on the computer power and scene optimization. In the Properties tab we have different options. One that we will use often is the Modifier tab. There we have a large number of modifiers that speed up the modeling process. For example, the Array modifier enables us to quick and easily duplicate objects. With the Mirror modifier we can easily mirror everything we do on one side to another side. With the Boolean modifier we can cut one object with another. There are many other modifiers. These are just a few that we use most often. The tools on the left allows us to quickly transform the object. For example, we will often use the Move, Rotate and Scale tool, but we usually use them with shortcuts G for Grab, R for Rotate and S for Scale. Most often combine it with X, Y or Z for X, Y or Z axis. For example, if we press S for Scale, then X for X axis, we can scale the object only along the X axis, or RY to rotate only on the Y axis, or GZ to move along the Z axis only. To edit an object we need to go to Edit mode. The shortcut for this is Tab. There we have three types of selection: vertex, edge and face selection. We can jump between them with 1, 2 or 3 on keyboard. Now we can grab vertex, edge and face and scale, rotate or grab with S, R or G. There are a large number of options that we use in edit mode. Some that we use often is Ctrl R to add loop cut, E to extrude and Ctrl B to bevel. Shortcuts that we use often to navigate through the scene is Numpad 1 for the front orthographic view, Numpad 3 for the right, Numpad 9 for the left, and Numpad 7 for the top. You can get the same by clicking on this gizmo. By pressing the N key we open additional tabs. You can find all this in Properties tab and much more, but this is shortcut for this we use often. The first 3 tabs come with Blender and the rest is the add-ons that I personally install. We will mostly use the Transform tab where we can see location, rotation, scale and dimension. There we can see the dimensions of our selected object. The best way to start doing anything in Blender is to collect reference images. As the main reference, I will use images from this link, which is Backrooms Wikipedia. You can find link in the description. And a screenshot from this video, because I want to combine the backrooms and the pool rooms in one part, I will take this image as reference. The best way to always have reference images at hand is the free program PureRef. You can download it for free at pureref.com. Simply slide images into it and at any time you can open and zoom images or move or scale the window. If you don't want to use PureRef, you don't have to, because I will open reference images in the tutorial. I will share reference images with you. You can make the maze according to your wishes, but for the purpose of this tutorial I made a floor plan of the maze, so that you can follow this tutorial and get a similar result to me if you want. If you have never used Blender before, you need to go to blender.org and you can click here to download and download Blender for free and then install Blender. Next I will create Pool Rooms folder. You can create this on your desktop or where you want, so we can save blend file here. And now I will copy this address and I will go to Blender and File, Save As, and I will call this Pool Rooms tutorial. And now we have our file here. I prepared this ground plane image and this will be reference for our tutorial, and this is how I imagine pool rooms last time. And I will now just quickly show you in 3D space how this look. So this part here is back rooms and this is pool rooms. And last time I start from here and I look little around these back rooms and then I go with stairs down and I enter in pool rooms. Then I go with these stairs here and came down with these stairs here, look around this area here, and then I go with this zigzag maze and enter in main pool room. And this time we will get similar result by this, because we will follow this ground plane, but later when you learn how to make your pool rooms, you can make maze by your wishes, or for example you can always edit this file. I will show you just quickly how you can do this. We can add another room if we want here. And I will show you later how, so this is just an example. We can extrude this part here and make another room here. Okay, and now we have another room here and you can make another animation if you want. And I will just enable Bevel here, and we can quickly add Bevel here if you want. So this is just an example how you can use this file and make quickly another rooms here, and I will show you in this tutorial how you can do all this. Now we can back to our Blender file and I will select all these 3 objects we get by default, and I will press delete on keyboard or X on keyboard, and I will delete these 3 objects. And next I will go with numpad 7 to top orthographic view. And if you don't have numpad on your keyboard, you can go to view, viewport and top. So now we are in top orthographic view. It is very important to be in top orthographic view when we import reference images. For example, if I rotate scene like this and if I go with Shift A and image reference, and you can see that this image is now on rotation and this is not useful, so I will delete this and I will press numpad 7 and I will go with Shift A, image reference, and I will now import this ground plane here. This increment here is big, 1 meter, so if we go for example with cube, and we can see here that the scale of this cube is 2 meters, so this matches 2 of this increment here, and so we know that this reference image is big, about 5 meters on x-axis, and this is too small. So for this purpose I made this reference cube here, which is 10 by 10 meters. So what I will do here, I will go with Shift A, cube, and I will type here 10. You can type one by one, or you can just drag here and type 10 here. And now I will scale this reference image to match this cube, this part here. So I will scale this more, and let's move this on Y and X axis and try match this here. Okay, we can go to X-ray mode or just wireframe mode, and we can now see our cube here, and I will scale this. So you can always use shortcuts. So shortcut for grab is G, and if you press X we can move this on X axis. So GX and now GY, and scale this little more. Okay, this look pretty good, and I can now back to viewport display, and I will now delete this cube. So we are now sure that this match real world scale. We can now start creating walls here, but before we start I will just bring these reference images to pure ref. So just select all reference images and bring this here. And now when we are in Blender we can always click here, and with right click we can move this where we want and or scale, and we can zoom into our reference images. And you can see where I found reference for this part here, and this image here is reference for this part. You can see similar shapes here, and all these bevels we will add later. And this entrance to pool rooms is reference for this part here. And this zigzag maze is reference from these images here. I will first put a cursor here because we will start from this point, and I will go with Shift A and create plane, and I will now back to selection tool, and you can see that this plane is little under this reference image, and I will go with G and Z to bring this little up. Okay. Now I will go to edit mode, and with this vertex select I will select these 3 vertices. So select first these 2, and with holding shift select this one and press delete vertices, and now we have only 1 vertices here. I will press E to extrude, and you can see where is Y axis and also here, and I will press Y to stick on Y-axis. And now I will press E again, and I will now go with X-axis. So X for X-axis. And E and Y for Y-axis, and E for extrude, and X for X-axis. E, Y, E, X. And now I will just go with E for extrude, and I will stop here, and we can see our zigzag line here, and I will not follow all these points here. I will just go with E to extrude and X for X-axis. And if you don't see this line, you can always press A to select all. Now I will back to first point, and I will start from here, so E and X for X-axis. E again, and just try match this reference. And also here I will just go with E, and we will later create this zigzag effect. Now I will go with, I will select one vertex here, and I will go with Shift D and move this to this point, and I will now go with E to extrude, and I will place about here. Just be sure that these two lines are parallel. So I will move this little to here. Okay, this looks pretty good, and now I will extrude this one to about here, and E for extrude and X for X-axis. And now we have only edges here, and if we now press E for extrude and Z for Z-axis and 6 for 6 meters, we get walls. But you can also, you don't need to do this, but you can also just press E and Z for Z-axis, and you can look here and just bring this to 6 meters. But I will be more precise, and I will press E, Z and 6. Now we can create this zigzag effect here, so I will select this edge select, and I will go to edit mode, and I will add 10 loop cuts here. So just Ctrl R and scroll mouse to add 10 loop cuts here. Okay, and I will do same to another side, so Ctrl R and add 10 these loop cuts here. Okay, and now I will select every other couple of loop cuts here. So select first one and hold Shift and just go with every other couple here, and we are now in global transfer orientation, and you can see that this match global X and Y axis. But if we change here to normal, this will be vertical to these faces here. So we can now just move this on X axis a little, and I will now select other couples here of these edges, and I will move this again on X axis. And now I will do same on this part here, so Ctrl R, add about 10 loop cuts. Okay, and Ctrl R again. And now move this on y-axis, on x-axis, and select every other here and move to opposite direction. And let's now create these backrooms walls. So I will go here with Ctrl R, and I will add one edge here to this part, and I will now back to global orientation, and I will go with extrude Y for y-axis, and I will stick to this wall here. And now I will add one loop cut here, and with Ctrl B we can split this. And if you have more than one edge here, you can scroll mouse down and try match this part here. Now I will press delete and delete faces. And to create these walls, I will just go with select these two faces and Shift D and X to move on x-axis, and now E for extrude and X for x-axis. And if you now press L over this part, we select loose part. So L and L here, and now Shift D again and X for x-axis and move this to about here. Okay, I will press S and X to scale this little on x-axis and also these two parts. And let's also select this edge select and extrude this part here. So E X, and I will now select this edge here and E Y and E Y. Now we will talk about bevels, and if you go with numpad 7 and look at this reference, you can see that you have reference for bevels, and if you want you can follow these lines later, but you can also create bevels by your wishes. So I will now show you two ways to create bevel. First way is destructive bevel, so you don't need follow this step. If you select this edge here and if you go with Ctrl B and if you scroll mouse up, you get this bevel. But the problem with this destructive bevel is that if you later change your mind and if you want the smallest bevel here, you cannot go back, and you need select one by one this and delete and try fix this problem. This is called destructive bevel because change your mesh and you cannot undo this. You can undo this few minutes, but later you cannot anymore undo this. So we will use non-destructive bevel, which is bevel modifier. And I will show you two common problems with bevels. If you set this, for example, to 1 meter, you should get 1 meter of bevel here. But if you don't get this result, that's because probably you have double vertices, and you can go to edit mode and you can press A to select all and F3, and you can search here for merge by distance, and you can click here, and this should fix your problem. And another common problem here, if you for example have two faces facing to another direction, for example if you go here to face orientation, you can see that we have blue color here and red color here. But if we flip this normal orientation, you get, and I will just for now turn off this bevel modifier, and if I go here with Ctrl B, you get this problem. You always need to have blue colors where is camera. So because camera is inside this object, I want to have blue colors inside and red colors outside. So I will just now go to edit object mode, and I will select all these red faces which is inside. And I will now press F3 and I will flip this and make this blue. Okay, this one. And this part here is not visible in camera, but I will also flip this. So just flip these normals, and everything what is visible in our camera must be blue. Okay, here is all blue inside, and this look correct. And I will now just turn off this face orientation here. And now we can back our bevel modifier, and if we add, for example, 1 meter here, we get 1 meter bevel. And I have this problem. Let's check this face orientation here. Yes, we can see this problem. So F3, flip, and this works now. And I get this problem here because when I extrude this face here, I get also this double face here. So we have let's disable just for a second this. You can always disable modifier by clicking here, and I will just delete faces. Okay, this look okay now. And also I will delete these faces here, and this look better now. Now we have another problem. If we remove this, we can add here more segments to make this smoother. And if we change this value, for example, to 0.2, we add 20 centimeters of bevel here, but also on all these edges. But I want to control this, so I want more bevel here and less bevel to these edges, maybe only 1 centimeter. And we can control this with, if we change here, limit method from angle to weight. Now when we are in edit mode and when we select one of this edge, we get this input here called bevel weight. Okay, first I will back this to angle for a second, and I want to see how much bevel I want and which is maximum value of bevel I want here. So if we increase this value from 0.2 all to 1, you can see that this bevel just stopped working. So we can here add, for example, 10 meters, it will be same. And the reason for this is, if you see this wall here, distance from this is about 1 meter. So distance from closest two edges is this one, and this one is about 1 meter. And if we go more than 1 meter bevel, these two vertices stick one to another, and we cannot go anymore with this bevel value. So this is a maximum bevel we can add here, and I will not go with more than 1 meter because this have no sense. And I will just stick this to 1 meter here. And now I will back to weight method, and we can now here, and when we go to edit mode and when we select one edge, we can see here bevel weight, and we can add here percentage of this value. So if we add here, for example, 0.1, we add 10 centimeters bevel here because this is 10% of this value. If we add here 0.5, this is bevel of 0.5 meters. Okay, so I will now select When we know how this works, I will now select these edges here, and I will now add maybe here 0.02, maybe just 2 centimeters of bevel. You can see how this looks. And but here I will add a lot of bevel. If you look our reference, we have a lot of bevels here. So I will go to edit mode and select this. I will select all this and I will add here. Go here all to 1 to add a lot of bevels here. And also here. And with these walls I will go maybe with 0.1 to add 10 centimeters of bevel. So 0.1, just small bevel here. And I will add a lot of bevels here, so I will go with all these edges with value of 1, which means 1 meter bevel. Okay, just increase this all to 1 and we get these bevels here. And let's add little bevel here, so 0.05 centimeter. And also here, maybe 0.1. And for this zigzag we have a little problem because I want to add a lot of bevel here, more than 1 meter. So if you want to deselect one edge, you can hold Ctrl and just drag over here and I deselect this. So if we increase this all to 1, we get only 1 meter and we cannot go more than 1 because we stick on 1 meter because of this wall here. But I can fix this quickly if I separate these two walls from this one. So I will go here with Ctrl R to add one loop cut and also here. And I don't want to separate from this edge here because I want to add bevel here and I know that I don't need bevel on this part. So that's the reason I add another loop cuts here. And I will do same with this part. And now I will go to face selection and I will, with holding shift, select all these walls. And I will now press P, selection. And now if we add bevels here, for example, and if I go all to 1, I can now increase this value. Okay, so I can go all to 7 here, but I will go maybe with 2 meters. And now we can select all these edges here. And also on this side. And I will now increase this all to 1. And now we can control this bevel here only with this value here. Okay, let's say that 2 meters is good and I will now increase this number of these segments here to make this smoother. Okay, and let's increase this a little and we get this nice shape. And we can always back later and we can, when we make test renders, we can always play with these values. And that's the reason we use this bevel weight method. And now we have two separate objects. So this is one object and this is another, and this is not big problem. Just be careful later when you add materials to add to both these objects, and that's only problem here.